So this is just going to be ramblings of what I'm thinking about. I'll try to stay on topic. Walking around Atlanta, Maryland, very hostile environment where you feel like a loser for walking instead of driving your car. Very thin sidewalk, only on one side of the street, no bike lanes. Corporate offices, very boring corporate offices, bad, unkind buildings abound. At least they're not above 5 stories, which is illegal. But it's been a couple weeks since I put out my transit plan idea. I got some feedback on it. But it's like the biggest hurdle I think about is just like, how cool can you really make public transit? Can you get the stench off of public transit? I mean, you think about, streetcars were used back in the day. It's like, did the people back then like having to take the streetcar? I mean, I think one of the main problems is once you've seen how easy and quick your day can be with a car, why would you ever choose to have constraints? That's the big question. So why would you ever choose to only be able to run 2 errands a day instead of 5? You know, why would you choose to be able to see your grandma and nothing else that day when you could just take your car and do that and 5 other things and eat wherever you want? And you know, that's the thing that no amount of public transit could ever solve, is just this idea that you can do anything at any time. And it's kind of the same parallel issue with fast fashion, or combating fast fashion. It's like, why wouldn't I want to choose any color and any style and get it tomorrow? You know? And I think that's a very, it's just our nature to be able to want to have choices. So what's the appeal of something invisible like climate change and moralistic things like that? Is very hard. It's very hard to stay disciplined to, and it's just not tangible. It's like, I'm helping, instead of getting this shirt tomorrow, that makes me feel good when I'm, retail therapy. I'm going shopping and buying this shirt because I want to pick myself up today. Instead, you go to some local artisan and have to sit for a sizing, and you can only choose these 3 fabrics because that's all they have in their shop. And then they only can do certain styles. Maybe you don't like those styles. And then you have to wait 2 weeks to get your shirt. It's like, sure, in your head, maybe it'll feel more significant when you wear it. It's like, whoa, I have a rare shirt on, everybody. But how do you engender long-term satisfaction when you could easily have short-term satisfaction, and you can get a lot more short-term satisfaction? It's just kind of like eating a lot of sugar and candy versus having a good diet and living longer. Like, what's a funner life? And I mean, that's up for debate. So anyway, just trying to think about, like, how is it even, like, the thesis is that if you build a cool transit system that's efficient, on time, and somehow gets rid of this stench of public transit, just being blunt, people don't, I mean, when you think about, even when I think about public transit, I didn't take a city bus for the first 6 years I lived in Charlotte. Because first of all, I don't know how the system works. And then it's like, why would I want to spend all my time taking a city bus when I could just get in my car and go wherever I want to go? And relative cost wise, it's like, I already have to pay for gas. I already have to pay for my car payment and my insurance and my property tax. So supplementing public transit is just adding cost. Like, it's not like I'm saving on gas money if I'm only doing it every once in a while. And then, so I didn't even take public transit until I took some time off. I think that speaks to, that's one of the biggest problems with having to take, imagine that sentence, having to take public transit. Is there a way where that's not a sentence anymore? Having to take public transit. And instead being like, taking public transit, getting to take public transit. Something that's a little more positive. That's one of the biggest hurdles is the time aspect. There's just no way to make public transit faster than a private car, unless you give like a priority lane, a bus rapid transit lane, and you like make the car lanes super jacked up. It's just counterproductive at a certain point. But I guess the one benefit you could try to emphasize in public transit is you don't have to drive. You don't have to have your mind on the road. You can sit back and watch YouTube or get work done on your commute. It's like, is that enough of an incentive? And also the question is, how do you, even if you're able to do all that and relax and get stuff done while you're in transit, you still have to deal, most times you have to deal with transfers. Your bus or your train or whatever isn't always going to get you to your location. So you're going to have to pick up all your stuff and your laptop and your papers if you're working on your transit just to get off. And then you hope that the interval isn't too big to where you're not waiting for 30 minutes to just make your transfer. Imagine that. I'm not where I need to be. I'm not where I started, but I'm sitting here waiting for a transfer. How do you make those things work? And maybe it's a problem that public transit can't solve, where it's like, what is our concept of time? Why are we so pressed to be on time and minimize waiting? Like, maybe that's just a way bigger cultural question, that maybe we don't always have to do 8 things a day. Maybe all my day can consist of is taking the bus to Home Depot, getting a screwdriver, and taking the bus back and cooking dinner. Why can't that be my day? And I think that's kind of the cultural crux of the situation. Some societies are slower, some societies are faster, but I think as time moves on, it's called kind of getting blended, especially when you don't really have to work where you live or consume materials or media where you live. It's all kind of one thing right now. It's becoming one thing. So, I don't know. Just Because you could invest all this money, you could make the perfect, under my design direction, my creative direction, design this perfect transit system. And what happens when no one rides it? And now you've just disrupted everything because you're not understanding the culture and you're not understanding how to shift culture. So what are those cultural shifts? What are how can you reckon with choice? What's better than fast, easy, convenient choice with repercussions like climate change and such that aren't really felt today? Especially when, it's YOLO culture, man. Why are we worrying about 20 years from now when we have to worry about problems of today? You can't really foist that on people without understanding that not everything is so crazy important to sacrifice your fun today for tomorrow. What if I don't get a tomorrow? That's just something to really consider. There's a reason why the culture we have exists. It's not everybody acting fake. It's not everything is perfect. A basic tenet of purism circa 2011. Everything is perfect. Everything happens because it's supposed to. So, that's where emotion derives from. Is emotion comes from a misunderstanding why people do what they do. If you know everything, if you know what's going to happen next, if you know why it's going to happen, I guess you could be satisfied at watching it happen, but it's not much emotion elicited from that. But being mad, sad, glad is because you were surprised in a certain way. So anyway, it's just how great can you make a bus? How comfy can you make it? How luxury can you make it to where it's better than taking a car? What is a car? What doesn't a car have that can counter over all the great, easy privacy? And that's also the thing is we live in a society of individuals, more and more and more individualistic, and there's merits to that, a lot of merits to that. It's especially being, if you're LGBT, live in a society that's super communal and nobody likes gay people. It's I would rather a society of individuals that don't care what I'm doing. So there's always benefits and drawbacks to being a communal kind of society. But inevitably, public transit would work a lot better if we loved our society, if we loved our neighbor, if we supported each other, because that's one benefit. And that's the thing, depending on your personality, is not one size fits all. It's a whole bunch of different personalities and different experiences coming together. So how do you create an environment that makes it comfortable for the average person in your society? But the one benefit of public transit, if you are a socially inclined person, is that you can just pop a conversation with somebody, or overhear a conversation, or ask somebody a question about the place you live and get further knowledge than what Google is going to show you on a web search, And that's one benefit. Just more community feel. But like I said, community feel is an invisible, hard to achieve, and not even really for everybody benefit. A car, A to B, real quick, private, listen to your own music, be in your own environment, temple of individualism. So obviously it would never be a one-size-fits-all thing to have the perfect public transit. There's always going to be people that prefer suburbia. There's always going to be people that prefer having their own vehicle that they can maintain and have pride in. And that's a whole hobby in itself, is taking care of your car, and that's no problem with that. It's just, there's a certain life you should be able to live, and it shouldn't have to require having a car. A car shouldn't be a requirement to living adult life, and in so many places it really is. Just with the time commitments, where you're allowed to live, how you're allowed to spend your day, you have to have a car. Otherwise, you're just strapped for time and you're just living to work every day, kind of. Unless you're an avid reader and you can read while you're on your commutes, then it works for you. But how do you make it work for more people? How do you make it more efficient? How do you build towns, transit-oriented developments that enable a lot more lives to be lived with public transportation? So yeah, those are just some questions I've been thinking about, man. It just would be nice to not have to live with a car. Car has shaped so much of our environment, so much of our building codes, so much of our just attitudes towards life, man. Car is its own cult, man. It's its own frame of reference. Once you get inside car, behind the wheel, your whole personality changes, man. Because the best way to drive car is to be aggressive. That's the way you have to do it. Everybody aggressive driving makes driving easier. That's the core tenet. So everybody is aggressive, everybody's fearful. You have this thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of heavy equipment that could kill anybody hurtling at 80 miles an hour. So you're obviously, it changes your personality driving a car. It's not only are we impatient and we need things right now, it's kind of society, but driving a car only makes that worse. It's like, why am I delayed 1 minute because of traffic? I'm pissed now. I'm yelling at the person in front of me now. You would never do that on a public transit. You would just be like, okay, I'm a little annoyed that we're going slowly, but I can't even see what's causing the accident, so I'm just going to keep reading my book. It's just, I think we need to examine, and that's what I want to make a nice, concise presentation about. Just examining the ways in which car has affected our personalities and our expectations of the life we live. Because I think it's very broad-based and it affects so many industries. How we base society around car. How we hollowed out so many urban areas for parking. How we build buildings with parking podiums, and how tall we build buildings. More car parking, less buildings, but higher buildings. More ominous, unkind buildings. But yeah, something to think about. Just trying to get it all down so I can I just really want to nail down this stuff and have concise arguments. Once I have concise thoughts, then I can try to do some precedent studies, look at what's been done around the world, look at what's been, are there precedents? Are there, so that's about it. See you soon.